Hello, I'm Sarah, and I want to share an unforgettable vacation I experienced with my dad, David. I was 21 at the time, and we made the decision to spend a week at a stunning beach resort to reconnect after everything our family had faced. Following the loss of my mom, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for us to strengthen our bond and create new memories together. Upon our arrival at the resort, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the breathtaking beach. The waves sparkled under the sunlight, and I could already feel excitement bubbling within me. I dashed toward the water, feeling free and vibrant, while my dad chased after me, laughing and splashing water my way. "Come on, slowpoke," I called, giggling as I plunged into the waves, but when I glanced back, I couldn't help but notice how handsome he still appeared. With his strong physique and warm smile, I thought to myself, my dad is really good-looking, shaking my head to clear my thoughts. That first night, we participated in a beach bonfire organized for the guests. Laughter and shared stories filled the air, and I felt a sense of belonging. However, as the night went on, I caught sight of a few guys glancing our way. "Dad, please don't embarrass me," I said playfully, though a thrill ran through me when he wrapped his arm around my shoulders and pulled me close. In that moment, a warmth blossomed between us that made my heart race. Was it merely the heat from the fire, or was there something deeper at play? The following day, we rented bicycles to ride along the beach. It was a beautiful day, and I loved being outdoors with my dad. As we pedaled along, the wind whipped through my hair, but I could also feel his eyes on me. Every time I looked back, I noticed his gaze lingering a bit longer than usual. I began to wonder if he was feeling something beyond just fatherly love. Then, out of nowhere, while I was enjoying the ride, I took a small tumble off my bike. I laughed it off, but when I looked up, I saw my dad rushing over to help me, concern etched on his face. "Are you okay?" he asked, worry evident in his voice as he assisted me in getting back on my feet. Our eyes locked, and a jolt of electricity coursed through me. "What's going on?" I thought, quickly dismissing it as a strange coincidence. That night, as we settled into our cabin, a sudden storm rolled in. The wind held outside and rain poured down, but we felt safe inside. We wrapped ourselves in towels, sharing laughter and hot cocoa. It was cozy, and I sensed a deeper connection growing between us. As I smiled at him, I couldn't help but wonder why I felt this way about my dad. Was it simply because we were spending so much time together? The next morning, we awoke to clear skies, and I suggested we take a walk along the beach. It was serene, with the sound of crashing waves and seagulls calling overhead. "Dad, can I share something with you?" I asked, feeling nervous yet determined. "I feel like we're closer than ever. You're not just my dad, you're my best friend." He smiled, warmth shining in his eyes. "I feel the same way, Lily," he replied, but there was an intensity in his voice that made my heart skip a beat. Later that day, we decided to explore some local shops. While wandering through the vibrant market, I spotted a lovely seashell necklace and hurried to try it on. "What do you think, Dad?" I asked, glancing in the mirror. When I turned to gauge his reaction, I found him staring at me, his expression a mix of admiration and something I couldn't quite define. My cheeks flushed, and I quickly looked away, feeling a strange blend of excitement and confusion. As the week went on, I sensed an unspoken tension between us. One evening, we chose to watch the sunset from our balcony. The sky transformed into breathtaking shades of pink and orange. "This is beautiful, isn't it?" I said, turning to him. He nodded, but rather than just appreciating the view, he looked deeply into my eyes. "It really is, Sarah," he replied, his voice softer than usual. "Dad, I began, hesitating. Did I dare voice my feelings?" Just then, he interrupted me. "You know I love you, right?" he said, sincerity written all over his face. "You're the best thing in my life." His words struck me hard, stirring a surge of emotions I couldn't ignore. On our last day, as we were packing our bags, I stumbled upon a letter he had written but hadn't given me. My heart raced as I read the heartfelt words, realizing he had poured his feelings into it. He expressed how much he cared for me, how proud he was of the woman I had become, and how he cherished our time together. Yet there was also an underlying tension, a hint of something more that sent my stomach fluttering. Just then, I heard him enter the room, and my heart sank. "Sarah, did you find something?" he asked, his face paling as he realized I was reading the letter. "I did, Dad," I replied, my heart racing. "And I want to talk about it." In that moment, I knew we had crossed a line, and it was both thrilling and frightening. We sat down together, and I took a deep breath. "Dad, I feel something special between us, and I can't pretend it's not there," I confessed, my heart pounding in my chest. He looked taken aback, his eyes widening. "I care about you more than you know, Sarah, but we need to be cautious. Our bond is unique, and I don't want to ruin it," he said, his voice slightly trembling. We agreed to honor the love we shared while prioritizing our father-daughter relationship. It was a tough conversation, yet it brought us closer. As we drove home, a whirlwind of emotions swirled within me. That vacation had transformed everything, but I knew we would always have each other. I glanced at my dad, focused on the road, and smiled, grateful for the time we had shared. I came to realize that love can be quite complex, but the most crucial aspect is to treasure the connection we share. Upon returning home, I couldn't shake off the mix of excitement and anxiety I felt. I understood that our relationship had evolved in ways I had never anticipated. Would we be able to navigate this uncharted territory without crossing any boundaries, or would the feelings we had for one another continue to intensify? These thoughts raced through my mind as I packed my bags, stealing one last glance at my dad, who had transformed into a blend of protector, confidant, and someone who made my heart race in ways I never expected. It was clear that an intriguing journey lay ahead, and I felt ready to face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks after our vacation, life settled back into a familiar rhythm, yet the unspoken bond between my dad and me lingered, like a gentle reminder in the air. I frequently found myself daydreaming about that trip, our playful moments, our conversations, and the memories we created. At times, I would blush at the recollections, especially those lingering looks that seemed to convey so much more than words ever could. One Saturday afternoon, while I was in the kitchen preparing lunch, my dad walked in, his usual cheerful demeanor brightening the room. "Hey kiddo, want to help me with some gardening?" he asked, a glint of mischief in his eye. Gardening had never really been our thing, but the prospect of spending time together felt wonderful, so I nodded enthusiastically. We spent the next few hours digging and planting flowers in the backyard, our laughter ringing out beneath the warm sun. I loved watching him work. There was something soothing about being near him. While we were planting the last flower, I accidentally dropped a handful of soil, creating a small mess. "Oops," I giggled, looking up at him with an apologetic smile. He burst out laughing, shaking his head. "Looks like we've got a little gardener in training," he teased. In that moment, I felt that familiar spark ignite between us, setting my heart racing once more. Later that evening, as we wrapped up our gardening, I suggested having a movie night. He agreed, and soon we were snuggled up on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us. The movie was a romantic comedy filled with laughter and cheesy moments, but my mind began to wander to the depth of our own relationship. As the film played on, I felt my dad's arm slide around my shoulders. It was a casual gesture, but the warmth of his touch sent shivers down my spine. I leaned into him, and for a moment, everything felt just right. But then the movie shifted to a more romantic scene, and I felt my cheeks flush. I sensed his gaze on me, and when I looked up, our eyes met. "Isn't that how love should be?" I whispered, partly to myself and partly to him. As the characters shared their first kiss, I noticed a shift in his expression, a blend of surprise and something deeper that made my heart race. "Yeah, it should be," he replied softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The tension between us was palpable. As the credits rolled, it felt like we were on the brink of something monumental. I wanted to articulate the confusing feelings swirling inside me, but I struggled to find the right words. "Dad, can we talk?" I finally blurted out, my heart pounding. "Of course, Sarah." "What's on your mind?" he asked, his tone serious yet gentle. I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "I know we had that conversation after our trip, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I just feel this connection to you that's difficult to put into words. I don't want to lose what we have, but I can't ignore these feelings." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a clear sign of his internal conflict. "I feel it too, Sarah. This isn't just a father-daughter bond anymore, but we need to tread carefully. I don't want to put you in a position that makes you uncomfortable or complicates our relationship. Maybe we can just explore these feelings a bit more. No pressure. Just see where it leads," I suggested, my heart racing at the thought. He looked at me, searching my eyes, and then nodded slowly. "Okay, but we'll take it slow, I promise." That night, sleep eluded me. I lay awake, contemplating the agreement we had just made. My heart felt heavy, with a mix of excitement and fear. What would this mean for us? Could we really navigate this new terrain without crossing any boundaries that shouldn't be crossed? The following weeks felt different. There was a new kind of tension in the air, and every shared glance seemed charged with meaning. Sometimes, I caught him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, his expression a blend of admiration and something I couldn't quite understand. One evening, we decided to take a stroll around the neighborhood. The sun was setting, bathing everything in a warm golden glow. As we walked, I felt inspired by the beautiful atmosphere, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. We covered everything from our favorite films to amusing stories from my childhood. As we turned a corner, I spotted a quaint little park with a swing set. "Can we go swing?" I asked, my inner child bubbling to the surface. He laughed softly. "I don't think I can squeeze into those swings, but I'd be happy to watch you." "Come on, it'll be fun," I urged, and to my delight, he relented. We both managed to fit onto one swing, and I couldn't help but giggle as we awkwardly tried to find our balance with each push. Soon, we were swinging higher and higher, our laughter echoing in the evening air. "This is so silly," he exclaimed, and I could see pure joy shining in his eyes. Eventually, we slowed down, our giggles subsiding as we rocked gently back and forth. I turned to him, feeling the closeness between us. "Dad, do you remember visiting parks like this when I was a kid?" I asked, nostalgia creeping into my voice. "Absolutely. You were always so brave, trying to outclimb all the other kids," he replied, a spark of fondness lighting up his eyes. "I suppose I still am," I teased, inching closer, soaking in the warmth emanating from him. In that moment, everything felt different. Our eyes met again, and I saw a blend of emotions swirling in his gaze. Without thinking, I reached for his hand, a surge of electricity coursing through me. "Dad," I murmured, uncertain of what to say next. He met my gaze, his breathing slightly quickening. "Sarah," he began, but before he could finish, a sudden commotion interrupted us. A group of kids raced by, laughing and playing. Just like that, the spell was broken, and we pulled away from each other as if we'd been jolted from a dream. We walked back in silence, the air thick with unspoken feelings. It was a mix of confusion, exhilaration, and fear all at once. I could sense we were approaching something significant, and it felt both thrilling and daunting. As the days passed, we continued to navigate our new reality. Little moments lingered, brief touches that lasted just a heartbeat too long, glances that seemed to carry an entire conversation. Each of those interactions made my heart race, and I found myself craving more. One weekend, we decided to check out a nearby town hosting a festival. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter, music, and the enticing scent of street food. As we moved through the bustling crowd, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. "Let's try some of that," I shouted, pointing at a stall selling fresh cotton candy. We indulged, giggling like children as we shared the fluffy treat. In that moment, I turned to him and noticed something in his eyes that caught my breath. There was an intensity, a connection that drew me in. "You know, I've never felt this way with anyone before," I confessed, my heart pounding. "I feel it too, Sarah." "You're incredible," he replied, his voice low and sincere. Just then, a couple strolled by, hand in hand, laughing together. A pang of jealousy hit me, a realization that others might interpret our closeness differently. "Do you think people notice us?" I asked, feeling exposed. He paused for a moment, considering. "Maybe. But what's most important is our bond. Just remember, no matter how strong our feelings are, we need to be mindful of how we act in public." As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the festival, I felt an urge to capture the moment. I suggested we take a selfie together, and as we posed, I felt his warmth radiating against me. "Smile," I encouraged. When the picture was taken, I glanced at the photo and saw an unspoken connection reflected in our eyes. I knew I wanted to keep this memory close to my heart. After the festival, we returned home, our hearts brimming but our minds racing. It felt like we were treading a delicate line, balancing on the edge of something beautiful yet risky. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts wandered to what lay ahead. How could we explore these feelings without losing ourselves? One thing was clear. This journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace whatever it might bring.